My name is Rick Baum, and I've been teaching in community colleges since the late 1970s and in many of the different districts in the Bay Area. And I've been at City College of San Francisco for more than 25 years. I teach part-time political science. And so we started holding meetings as part-timers to fight for more classes, to fight for our jobs and things like that. And that's what got heat off the ground. We soon thereafter organized a couple of rallies. The first rally was a funeral procession to mourn the death of classes that are taking place at the college. The second thing that we had, or a second event, which was not that well attended, but we called it really putting students first, because the chancellor at the time was saying his goal is to put students first, and yet as far as we were concerned, they were being put last because they were cutting classes and destroying their educational opportunities. And whose educational opportunities are getting destroyed at a place like City College? Predominantly working class students and students of color. So as far as I was concerned, they were reinforcing what's called structural racism, which is that you're denying people of color the opportunities to get an education. It's also a form of classism, because they were denying working class people from having the opportunity to attend the college by not offering enough classes. And so we wanted to say what really putting students first is all about. What I understand is the nationwide plan and state plan is that the college should only be there for students to get training so that they get a degree or certificate, or go on to get a 4-year degree, to transfer out. That's the priority. So rather than having a school that serves everybody and serves the community, they want to get rid of all those kinds of programs. That's what we have partly been fighting against. Programs in the arts. Many people go to school not to get a degree. I mean, I went to what's now called Berkeley City College to take an accounting class, because teaching part-time is so insecure and doesn't pay sufficiently, that I started doing taxes. And so taking the accounting class was something I did. I had no intention of getting a degree, but it was developing a skill. And that's what's available for people in the community colleges. Now I'd be considered a deadbeat student because I was just going there to take the one class, which is something that they are less and less interested in. At City College, probably a real good example of that is in fall of 2019, the then chancellor carried out what was called the Midnight Massacre, in which he said, we have a deficit. Whether or not it's true it's questionable whether or not it's true, and I'm going to unilaterally on my own cut out 300 classes or more, the bulk of which were in the older adult program. And there were very important classes for older adults, but older adults are not going to be working in the future. A lot of them were taking what's called a balancing class. He was eliminating those classes. And that's very important, because older people, one of the things that kills them at an early age is falling. And yet by eliminating these classes, he was telling these people who are, as you have said before, taxpayers, who spent their whole life paying taxes, he's shortening their lives. I think it's fair to say. But that's because those are students that they're indifferent to, because they're only looking to students who are going to be working in the future. So training students in the skills that business wants and desires. And so instead of businesses doing the training, which they would have done in the past, now that's the role of the school. And so these people can fit right into jobs upon graduation. Ideally, from the business standpoint, they want a glut of people with skills that they need so that they can pay them a lot less. I had a personal experience years and years ago. I was doing temporary clerical work. And at the time, I was a very fast typist. This is before computers. And I got a job for a week where the staff was being trained on what's called a word processor. This is a new invention. But the business was paying for it. Not only were they paying for the training, but they're also having to pay me. If the community college provides those skills, they get off scot-free and they don't have to pay for that kind of training. One of the problems with our education system is so much of it is oriented towards meeting the needs of business as opposed to meeting the needs of students to become well-rounded, creative thinkers, people who are socially engaged in the world. That's not the interest. They want people with skills so that they fill particular niches of their particular needs for their businesses. And this is also coming into play now with what's called the student funding formula, which is something that was enacted by the state a few years ago, where a lot of the funding for community colleges, I don't think it's at this point a big chunk, is going to be based on what they call success rates. Everybody favors success. I mean, I want success for my students, but how do they define it? They define it by how many students enter college, how quickly do they get out with a degree or are eligible to transfer to a four-year school. And where you have, especially in a place like San Francisco, a lot of the students are not there for that purpose, or they're going to take a long time because they're working while they're going to school. It costs a lot to go to school and to be able to afford to live. I'm always amazed at how many of my students are working at the same time that they're going to school, and it's going to take them a lot longer to get through. Another big change has happened, although now it's almost 40 years ago, is that community college used to be free in California for California residents. You could attend for free no matter where you lived in the state, wherever you wanted to go. And now students have, even though we're a much wealthier state, students now have to pay tuition to go to the community colleges. The problem today is, and this has been true for more than a year now, is that when they have cut classes that students need, and then you get a whole bunch of students trying to sign up for those classes, they're no longer available. It's not just English 1A, which is a basic required class that people have to take. It's true for the biology department, chemistry are the ones I've paid most attention to, but it's also true for classes in the arts. And what I have found, because I have monitored this over the last year and a half, is that English 1A is the primary example of this, and there's been articles about it, that those classes fill up very quickly after the schedule goes out. At least most of them do, with wait lists. And the wait lists are limited to 10 students, but what's the chance of people getting into the class if they're number 10 on a wait list? And they're excluding people. So this last year, I would say they had initially something like 52 sections, and then they added another 5, but there were well over 300 people on the wait list to get into those classes a week before school started. And the thing is, with community colleges, a lot of students don't know their situation and whether or not they're going to enroll in school until the last minute. It's frequent that a lot of students don't even try to register until the second week of school, especially when it starts at City College in mid-August. A lot of people think of starting school as after Labor Day, and they won't be able to get into those classes that they have to take to fulfill a requirement. But like I said, it's not just English 1A. I saw this in biology. There's hundreds of students on the wait list, chemistry. I mean, these are basic core courses, which is somewhat ironic because like the biology and chemistry, for example, a few years ago, there's all this emphasis on what's called STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they aren't even offering enough of those classes, even though the emphasis is that we have to offer more of those classes and have more people educated in those particular areas. So what you have happening, and there's a counselor the other day who posted something on the faculty exchange. She was saying she has lots of students come to her, and she says, I can't find classes for them. I tell them to go to another college because the classes are unavailable for them to take at City College. Now you've got lots of classes completely filled. I mean, 45 at their maximum. And from the administration standpoint, especially the bean counters, that's ideal. In fact, I think the attitude of many of them is not whether or not they're concerned about having behinds in seats. And that's what they are concerned about. That's something you can count. But when it comes to the quality of the education people are receiving, that's not concerned because they don't get paid for that. They just want the bodies in the seats, and if they're getting good education or not, that seems to be a secondary concern. And when all these classes are filled to the gills, it undermines one of the ideals of the community college, which is that you have smaller classes so that you can have that interpersonal relationship between the teacher and the students. If you're teaching classes, a bunch of classes with 45 students, It's going to be hard to even get to know the names of all the students in your classes.